Words from 1 Peter chapter 2 and verses 4 to 10. Come to him, a living stone, though rejected by mortals, yet chosen and precious in God's sight. And like living stones, let yourselves be built into a spiritual house, to be a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. For it stands in Scripture, see, I am laying in Zion a stone, a cornerstone, chosen and precious, and whoever believes in him will not be put to shame. To you then who believe, he is precious, but for those who do not believe, the stone that the builders rejected has become the very head of the corner, and a stone that makes them stumble and a rock that makes them fall. They stumble because they disobey the word, as they were destined to do. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's own people, in order that you may proclaim the mighty acts of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. 25 years, similar response to Roger's response for 50 years. There are times when I find myself wondering, where have those 25 years gone? And then I don't know whether you find this, but I catch a glimpse of myself on Zoom and suddenly there those 25 years are. I'm grateful tonight as we share in celebration together for so many people who have prompted my call to preach initially and who supported my initial call to preach through training and discernment in those early days. In particular, tonight, I want to say a thank you to Hyacinth. Hyacinth Taylor was my mentor back then, and I shared as I was leading worship at Eton Bray this morning, I still very much view her as my mentor now. Whenever I'm leading worship and Hyacinth's there in the congregation, I'm always thinking, did I miss anything out? Have I done what I should have done? And I know I owe so much to Hyacinth, to her belief in me and to her sharing with me in the first part of that journey. I also want to thank my family for putting up with me over this time, particularly when it comes to preparing for worship. They'll know what I mean by that. The times when I've shut myself away, when I've probably become slightly grumpy, and I know I probably shouldn't admit to that, but there are times when maybe the thoughts haven't come, when I haven't got the inspiration, and they thank you for them for putting up with me over the years. And there are many, many others, some of you here on Zoom tonight, who I want to say thank you, who've been part of my formation in those early days, and I would want to say throughout this last 25 years, shaping me as a preacher. And a general thank you to all of those who have shared with me in this journey over the last 25 years. As I reflected tonight, having been made the offer of what Bible verse I might want to choose, it came to my mind the words that I've shared already from 1 Peter and verses 4 to 10. The words in these verses remind me of the fact that we are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's own people. I'm not sure that I've always fully recognized that and lived that all the time over this 25 years as a local preacher, as a disciple myself. I'm not sure that I've always fully recognized that I am part of that chosen race, that royal priesthood, that holy nation, part of God's own people. So these verses, for me, declare something of the transformation that God has on offer, freely and available to all people. Once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. And as we've just sung, we are called to respond to God's voice, to follow and to serve him, to be disciples and to disciple others. Many of the things that I value in my role and my calling as a local preacher we are called to see the world as God sees it, to speak out against injustice, to stand up for the voiceless, to be God's heart in our communities, to share our faith. Tonight, my hope and prayer in leading worship remains as strong and as clear now as it did 25 years ago, that together we may all seek to know God fully for ourselves, that we would find ways in which enable our worship to truly relate to how we can see what we share in worship, his holy part of what we do 24/7. You might say whole life worship linked to whole life discipleship. Let yourselves be built into a spiritual house, to be a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. And so, as we share, as I reflect on this last 25 years, may we together walk the path that will cost us much and embrace the pain and sorrow. May we trust in one who entrusts to us the disciples of tomorrow.
When we planned this, we didn't know whether Reg was going to be able to be attending. So I said I would announce his hymn, which is Singing the Faith number 608, All Praise to Our Redeeming Lord.